other forms of needlework, and some life updates just to keep things interesting. Today is January 3rd. It's a Sunday. It's right around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Happy New Year. Here's to hoping 2021 is a little easier to navigate than 2020 was for all of us. First, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Amy, the Globe-Trotting Stitcher. She gave me a shout out, and I've seen some of you who said she recommended you. I hope you like what you've seen. Hope you'll subscribe, click the like button. For my returning subscribers, I know there are some. Thank you so much for coming back and watching. It just, with all of the recent craziness, starting this has started to help me feel a little more connected to the needlework community again. I haven't had a local stitching buddy even before we couldn't get together in quite some time. So, seeing as it's the beginning of a new year, and I am certainly a self-proclaimed chaos stitcher, I did want to set a couple of loose goals for myself, one of which is that I'd really like to end 2021 with fewer WIPs. Works in progress for those of you who may be new to some of the lingo and abbreviations here, than I'm starting the year with. So I put together a quick spreadsheet last night with some information about my WIPs that I pulled out, and I have 22 WIPs. Actually, it's going to be 21 because there is one that I'm discarding, definitely, for sure. So ending the year with 20 or 19 would be what I would consider a success. I know there's all sorts of things going on out there, like No New Starts 2021, Stitch from Stash, and I find that it stresses me out to do those sorts of things. So while I may have loose goals, one of which is to use as much of my stash as I can, because heaven knows I have no business buying any new charts or anything like that, but I do, and it's my collection. And I know Brenda from Brenda and the Serial Stitcher have both said that, or has said that she doesn't feel bad about her stash. It's something that brings her joy, and she hopes that whoever inherits it understands that. So that's kind of where I'm at too. I know I'll never stitch everything that I own, and I may look at listing some things on Stash Unload, some things that I really just I know won't call to me anymore. But most of my stash I like to look through from time to time. I like to organize, kit some things up. If I don't feel like stitching, it gives me a chance to kind of give something to play with, and that might be some future videos, some stash dives. But for now, the WIPs I'm starting 2021 with. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So first of all, I have Chatelaine's Mystery 9. The King's Garden is what this has gone on to be called. I'm stitching it on a 32 count linen. It's a light lavender color. I think the color might be Lavender Mist. I know it's a Zweigart. It's got the orange thread in the selvage, and I'm stitching it with all of the Coral 4 fibers and the beads. I bought the kit from European Cross Stitch. I don't have a picture of what it is finished. If I can find one online, I'll insert it here. This got put aside because I really don't have a good spot to work comfortably with the big scroll frames right now. I don't have a frame. I'm kind of thinking about possibly getting one, or a stand, I should say. And I used to have a setup where I had a chair with arms, and I could put my bars across the arms of the chair and stitch, and I don't have that anymore. That's why that one got put away. I would like to get back to it. I have a couple of other Chatelaine kits that I would like to start, but I really only want to have one of those on the go at a time. And I don't have a lot of scroll rods, so I do kind of need to finish off one of my projects that's on scroll rods before I start a new one. My next WIP, and these are kind of loosely in order of oldest to newest, maybe. I wasn't really good about taking notes prior to 2020. I'm going to try to do even better with that this year. So we're kind of dealing with what we've got here. This, and I can't find my chart for this next one. It's from The Silver Lining. I'm not sure how many of you remember Mark Sostad and The Silver Lining. I'm not sure if those charts are still available, but he did gorgeous, gorgeous charts of flowers. I finished one of his roses. I have several other in my stash. This one is a purple and yellow iris, and I had thoughts of doing this for my sister. She went to a college and the iris was their flower, Elmira College in upstate New York. So this is Edith Wolford. This is where I got. She's on a, looks like 28 count, probably antique white cashel. Again, I've got the orange stripe in the selvage, and I can see it's 28 count, and it does feel like a linen, not an even weave. So she may come out. I do have all the materials. I have the working copy of my chart, but I don't have the original to share a picture with you. Again, if I can find a chart online and successfully edit this video, I will put a picture in here. So I do have some information on the stitch count on her. You'll notice I kind of tend towards larger projects, and her stitch count is 147 by 268. I did put some notes together last night as I was going through my stash and pulling my whips out. So some pieces I have better notes on than others. So my next whip, and I apologize, I'm doing things a little differently this week. I'm using the rear-facing camera of my phone. So I tested the settings, and I'm hoping that I'm getting everything in frame, but I can't see right now because the screen on my phone is facing the other way. Got really annoyed with everything showing up backwards. I did try getting a webcam, and I can't get the video and audio to sync. It was even more annoying to me than everything being backwards. So, long story short, I'm hoping that I can show this to you without a whole lot of glare. But this is Teresa Wenzler's English Garden Sampler. I'm sure many of you have seen it. It's been a popular chart. It's been out for quite a while. So here's where I am with that. So this is the fountain scene here. And I know that I put this down, and I've tried to pick it up a couple times, and I just trying to figure out where I am in this scene. I usually end up getting frustrated before I get too many stitches in it. The other thing I know I have to do is down here in this border, the peacock's tail is supposed to come down through the border, and I mistakenly stitched the Scotch stitches all the way across. So I'll have to pull a few of them out, and I have to figure out how to do that. But this is where I am with this. I still love this piece, and I will continue to stitch on it. I know you'll see one of my bad habits here. I have a really bad habit of sticking my needles in my fabric and walking away. My only defense is I know that I never intend to leave them alone as long as I have. So next up is another Teresa Wenzler. I'm sure many of you have seen this before. This is Peacock Tapestry. Hopefully there's not too much glare there. I'm doing this one on, I believe it's the called for fabric, which is a 25 count ivory even weave. So he's going to be absolutely huge. And on top of that, the stitch count is 280 by 180. So this is definitely, he's definitely a big boy, but I just love the peacock. And what I also love is the challenge of stitching this. All these pear leaves in here, they're all really confetti heavy, and they're very similar. Keeping track, this is definitely going to be a chart that I have to highlight on. But as usual, the border is just magnificent. I love Teresa Wenzler's borders, and I'm hoping you're seeing this. So there's that. As you can see, that's the only other piece I have on scroll rods. And again, it's kind of cumbersome to manage, but I hope to get back to that one. My goal is to continue stitching some of the border and then a few of the leaves, and obviously doing the back stitching as I go with that, because those leaves can be a huge nightmare. So next up after this is one that probably by rights should not still be a WIP. This is Butternut Road's Spirit or Earth Dancer. I'm sorry, I also have Spirit Dancer. And hopefully the glare isn't too bad in that photo. I have her completely stitched. I just have to do all of the specialty stitches and the beads so you can see all the parts where she has beads and all the fringing around here. I believe the feathers are attached to the dream catcher with ultra suede as well. And I think I went down to a 36 count fabric with this. So it's making all those fibers tight, plus which they have to be laid. So it's gonna take some patience to do that, but I probably should just sit down and do it. It'll probably go quicker than I think. But she's all beads up in here, lots of different beaded areas on her dress. So, and it doesn't show up well here, but this is stitched here. I'm not sure what that fuzz is on her, but I'd love to have her framed, so I need to just knuckle down and get her stitched. And stitch count on that one is 200 by 240. She's actually a lot more square than I remembered her being. So next up after that is a little bit smaller. This is Poppy by Nora Corbett. It's one of her pixies, and she's 105 by 158 on the stitch count. She's another one that probably shouldn't still be a WIP, and I stitched her because I love the reds in her skirt. They're so vibrant. So here she is. I put her back on a set of Q-snaps because she's all done except the beading. So you can see I did a little bit of the beading here back in November, kind of picked her up on a day when I didn't have patience for beading and following the chart. So I need to get back to her. And if I just sit down and did her, she'd probably be done pretty quickly. She is on 32 count. I believe the color is sterling. It's pretty gray from Picture This Plus. And you can see she's way over to the side of the fabric because I have plans of doing Holly, another one of the pixies, over on this side. So I just like the way the reds pop on this particular gray. So hopefully she'll be a finish this year. Those look like two likely candidates for fairly quick reductions in my WIP count. So next up, and this one I truly don't remember when I started this. I know it was quite a while ago because I know where I bought the thread. The shop, the owner retired, and the stitching friend that I used to get together with when we would go to that shop has been moved to Long Island, probably about 10 years now. So here it is. It's the Holly and the Ivy sampler by Teresa Wenzler, and I know it's one of my favorite songs, but also this border is just what really called me to this piece. It's a typical Teresa border, really intricate. I'm stitching this on a piece of 28 count. It's a really, really pale mint green. I don't remember the name of the color. I do know that it was discontinued, and my friend and Aunt Linda and I got the last two pieces of this fabric when we got it at the LNS. But you can see I started on the corner, and I'm not quite sure what made me put it down. I know there was a point in time where I just got totally burned out onto Christmas stitching because it seemed like that's all I was doing. And I think this piece might have been a victim of that. And she's another fairly sizable one. The stitch count on that is 278 by 194. She's got some really nice white work in it. There's a variety of stuff, and I'm really looking forward to stitching that. I should just pull it out. So, and I've said before, I don't really do full coverage designs. I really, really envy those of you who do. Amy Globetrotting Stitcher is doing a piece right now. I think it's a Heaven and Earth piece. And I'm enjoying watching it. I just don't enjoy the process of stitching them. But having said that, I do have one that I plan on stitching, and I've started. This is Day Surrendering to Night by Custom. The charting's done by Custom Crafts, And the original artwork is by Sheila Wolk. And the stitch count on this one is, I know I wrote it down here somewhere, 246 by 197. So it's definitely a landscape piece. And let's see if I can get that closer for you. So it is my one full coverage piece, and I will work on it. This piece has had a bit of an adventurous life so far, but here's where I am on it. I'm in the blue top corner where the blue stitches are. And you can see I should have learned a lesson by about not leaving my needles in. I've got some rust marks here. Fortunately, they're outside of the stitched area and in the margin. But for a while, I lost the fabric where I'd started this. Then I couldn't find the chart. Then I couldn't find the threads. So I finally got everything all back together, and hopefully this one will see some progress this year. So this one is going to be tough. I know the glare shows up on this quite a bit because it's an actual glossy photo, but this is Siam Fusion from Sampler Cove. The copyright on this chart is 2008, and I think I started it fairly soon after it came out. This is all stitched in silks. They're done in, I think it's called Soie Cristal by the Karen collection. And I started kind of in the middle and got a big whopping start here. But I love blue, and this is actually a 28 count. I think the color was Charcoal Cashel by Zweigart. Again, I've got the orange thread in the selvage edge on this. I probably won't work on this during the winter because I tend to have trouble. I'm not sure if I got that stitched piece, but that's my big whopping start there. I tend to have trouble with silk snagging on my hands in the winter, so this might wait until summertime to come back out. And her stitch count is 200 by 300. So you can see I really tend to not pick small pieces. I do have, well, I shouldn't say not pick small pieces. I did a bunch of smalls this year, but they were all pretty cool starts and finishes. So next up is another Teresa Wenzler. This is Father Winter Sampler. Again, I think this was a victim to my Christmas burnout, but I think I'm going to pull this one back out. I bought this as a kit. This is how long I've had it. I bought it as a kit. Janlin used to do some really good quality kits with good amounts of DMC, plenty of beads, and they weren't skimpy on their fabric cuts. So I'm doing this. This is, I started in the middle. This is Father Winter's legs. And the kit is a 28 count even weave. I think the name of the fabric, and I'm not sure it's made anymore, was called Linda. It was an even weave, but it mimicked some of the textures of linen. There's some wider threads and some narrower threads. I've done a few projects on it. I really liked it. I haven't gone looking for it recently. But I think it came in I think at one point it came in like a 27 count, not even a 28 count. So that's another one I'd like to get back to. I think that one's going to be easier to pick up where I left off on the chart than English Garden Sampler. And I probably should start in and do some of the back stitching, bring out a little bit of the detail, because in addition to wonderful borders, Teresa certainly likes back stitching. But I don't mind doing it when it really brings out the details like hers do. So another piece I've got is this one. This is the, what is this called? Toys and Games stocking. Again, I hope the glare isn't too bad. This is from the Heirloom Christmas Stockings and Cross Stitch book by Better Homes and Gardens. I'm not sure if this is still in print or not. This is actually, if you can get it and you like doing stockings, this is a really cool book. There's 9 different stockings in here, and I had some pretty grand plans of doing at least 4 of them when I started this. But seeing how far I've gotten on this one, I might want to revise them. So I'm stitching this on a 32 count mushroom jogulin, and here's where I am so far. Again, another needle stuck in there. The good news is everything that I've got stitched so far, I've got back stitched. So I really don't have all that much to go. I've got the rest of this cupboard here and then a bunch of wallpaper. I'm not sure I'm going to put a name on this one or not. Initially I was thinking I was going to stitch it for one of my nephews, but they're both teenagers now, and I don't think this is necessarily their style of piece. So I may either not put a name on or put Merry Christmas, or maybe put my husband's name or my name on it. So, and I keep saying this is another one that I should really probably just suck it up and get back to doing. So here's another one that I don't have a picture of. This is, I believe it's Christmas Flips by Lizzie Kate. I'm stitching this on a 28 count banding, which I really like because the edge is already finished, and then it makes it easier. I'll probably finish it into like a bell pull, put some fabric on the back, and tassel on the bottom. So here's where I am with this. This faith is completed. I don't know what the next word is. I have to look through my supplies. I'm stitching it with all the called for threads. For a while I was doing quite a bit of traveling for work, and I took that with me, kind of because the charts aren't overly complicated to read, and it was easy to see my progress, and it didn't take up a lot of room in a laptop bag. So I should look and see. I think I've got, let's see, what have I got done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 done, so I probably only have 5 more to go, and probably would be easy enough and fairly quick for me to sit down and go through that. So next up is, this is an open heart by the Drawn Thread. This is a picture from my working copy, actually. And this is quite a long, narrow piece. I did this with a group of friends as a round robin, and the centerpiece was all stitched, and she came back to me with just the 2 outer borders to do. One is almost like a white work border. It's done in a lot of satin stitches, and the outermost one is all black work or back stitching, however you choose to look at it. I think I'm going to call it black work because it makes it sound more fun than back stitching. So here's where she is. You can see this is the top. This is done. This interior border is beautiful. So I need to just sit down and do this. She's on an even weave, feels like Jobelin, and looks like probably 32 count if I'm looking at this correctly. It might be 28. But I also found a DMC conversion. The original called for all silks. And here, I'm pulling her up. Hopefully you can see this, how beautiful she is. But she's definitely a long, long girl. So I think if I sat down and concentrated on those 2 borders, they'd probably go pretty quickly because there's definitely a pattern to them. So maybe this one will be one of the ones that I finish. I think I wrote down the stitch count on her just to give you an idea. Yeah, she's 99 wide, so she's not very wide, but she's 382 long. So, and I'm not sure what I'll do with that to finish it once I'm done stitching it. I'm not sure if she'll be framed because that could be kind of an expensive frame. I might just finish her into a bell pull style finish as well. So, my next piece is another long and thin one. This is Heirloom Nativity Sampler by the Victoria Sampler, probably my second favorite designer behind Teresa Wenzler. And I have so many of her charts, and I've stitched a bunch of them. A lot of the ones I've stitched I've given away. Some of her smaller band samplers I do still have waiting to be FFO'd in some fashion. But I did Heirloom Wedding as a wedding gift. I did Heirloom Anniversary for my parents, and actually I finally got that framed after way too many years and gave it to them for Christmas. What else have I done? I have Heirloom Christmas downstairs. Maybe when I do a previous finish video someday, I'll bring that one up. And I've done some of the letter samplers for my parents. I've done some of the little garden pieces that are waiting to be FFO'd. So, and I have several of her Small Farm series waiting to be stitched. I know I have Strawberry Fields. And I have most of them kitted up because I love the fact that you can buy the thread packs. And they're a little bit pricey, but they're certainly much more economical than having to buy full skeins of silk when you wouldn't use them. And I love stitching with the silks. Just feeling the silk and the linen it's such a calming, soothing experience. But I certainly would not be spending what I would need to do to kit up a Victoria sampler in full skeins. So here's where I am so far. I think probably once I finish with the Wiseman, I'll probably be about a third done with this. And the one thing I truly like about Victoria sampler versus some of Nora Corbett's pieces, I really, really like the fabric she picks. Haven't been able to improve on her color choices. So this one is stitched on the called for 28 count Smoky Pearl Cashel. So there's, as you can see, I've got a lot of Christmas WIPs. Here's one that's not Christmas, but definitely appropriate for this time of year. This is Winter Quakers by Rosewood Manor. We're starting to get into some of my more recent starts. I started this one in 2018. I remember that. It was President's Day weekend. I had a friend who had some surgery and she wasn't able to drive herself, so I went to visit her and took her around, provided some transportation. She had a cousin who was great, gave her great support, but it kind of gave her cousin a break too, to not have to, not worry so much. So I took this with me. We did some of Stephanie's errands, and then we spent a lot of time watching Netflix, saw some really cool things, and I did some stitching. And I started this, and that's the last I've stitched on it, was this weekend. I really need to get this back out. It is on the called for 28 count Dwarf by Picture This Plus. It's a Cashel, and I'm using the called for Valdani threads. I did another one of Karen's Quakers, and I converted it to Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works because I wasn't sure I wanted to try a new thread. But this one, I was able to get the thread pack from my LNS, and I don't mind working with them. They're not hard to use, and they definitely give a distinct look to the piece. So, and that's the last of the pieces that I started before 2020. Everything now is recent starts from this past year. And this next one is probably the WIP that I started most recently, and I got sidetracked by some other smalls. But this is Deck the Halls from Stitching with the Housewives. It's some of their What's in My Cup series. This is being done for, I call them my adopted nieces. One of my really best friends has daughters, and they're doing all remote schooling this year, and I decided I had stitched a couple of the fall pieces from this series for them to help decorate their areas, their desks where they're spending so much of their day. And I finished them using Priscilla and Chelsea's magnet finishes so that I could send them other pieces. And here's where I am with Deck the Halls. I've got all the white done, I've got the gray chickens done. So I need to do the tree at the top, the lettering, and some of the red stitching. This won't take me very long. I just, like I said, got sidetracked with the holidays. I'm doing these on 11 count black Aida, and I'm using DMC because I'm using 3 threads, and using 3/1 really goes through the floss pretty quickly. So I decided to use DMC instead of Classic Colorworks for them. So that should be a finish here pretty soon, and then I have a couple of winter ones. I'm going to send the girls winter and Christmas at the same time, and then I'll have spring and summer. I've got my eyes on some of their charts there. I'm waiting to see if they come out with anything new. So next up this is my piece that I started I think I started this in June, and I work on this primarily at the 911 Center, my part-time job when I'm there. In between phone calls when things are a little bit less busy. So this is Stand for Freedom by Glendon Place. I think you can see it was a limited edition. I believe it was sold as a kit. That's how I bought it from my LNS in 2018. So I'm using the called for threads, which are sulkies. This was my first experience with them. And on 28 count, I really like them. The coverage is good. It's a single strand. You just pull it off the floss, off the spool, and go. So I've got the eagle almost finished. I've got this last red piece of feather work to come out. Initially, I was thinking maybe I would just do the eagle and frame it, but I think I'm going to go with the words and the borders and the buttons since I have them all. This probably wouldn't take that much to finish, especially now that I won't be having any college classes until February 1st. Probably a good time for me to try to knock that out on my shifts there. So more to come on that one. This next one was a start in October of 2020. This is, hopefully the glare's not too bad, this is Trick or Treat Fairy from Nora Corbett, Mirabilia. This was in the 2000, let me check the date, 2008 September Cross Stitch and Needlework magazine. And this is one I've liked for a long time and just never made the effort to start. I joined a Facebook group called the Cross Stitch Monthly Magazine Challenge, and it's a fun challenge. There's, main piece and a cross stick. They're doing all sorts of interesting challenges. I kind of stick to the main piece, but it's kind of the purpose of the group is just to get people stitching the magazine charts that we've all collected, we've wanted to stitch forever, and we just never have. So I've done a few things. This is my WIP from there. I finished my September piece. I'm waiting for fabric to start my January piece. November and December I didn't do one. And if you're interested in Trick or Treat Fairy, I believe she's available on Hirschners.com as a PDF download. I know a bunch of the magazine charts that Nora has done in the past are available there. There's a couple I'm looking at. Victorian Christmas Eve. One of the members of the monthly magazine group is stitching that, and then there's an ornament piece that I forgot that she had done with metallics and beads, and I may download that as well. But here's where I am on this. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I'm getting everything in the frame. I'll have to edit this later and see where we are. But this, I've got one more row on her skirt, and then I've got her legs and a couple of pumpkins, and then it's all metallics and beading from there. So probably won't take all that much to get her finished either. I'm kind of starting to feel good about my WIPs and my goal of having less than I started with, although who knows what's going to happen with starts. The more I watch FlossTube, the more I find that I have to start. So next up is a piece that I was working excuse me, I've got a tickle. Sorry about that. This is a piece that I was working on during conference calls. When I started working from home this spring and summer, excuse me, I was initially on a lot of conference calls, and I found that stitching kept me focused on what was going on. We don't have to use our video. As a matter of fact, the way my office setup is here with dual monitors, I can't use the camera on my laptop. So I took advantage and worked on some pieces. Laura from the Pattern Queens convinced me to start this one. She had a start on this. I'd had it in my stash. I had everything I needed to start it. And anybody who knows me knows that the sentiment of first I drink the coffee, then I do the things is exactly right for me. The first thing I do every morning is have a cup of coffee. Not necessarily for the caffeine, but just for the smell, the taste, kind of the routine of it. And I'm doing this on a 25 count linen in the color Caramel from Tropical Stitches on Etsy. I'll link her below. I know I went the other day, I was looking for she has some beautiful neutral colors, and I went looking for a neutral for something else, and she didn't have anything listed in her shop, so I'm not sure if she's taking a break for the holidays, if she's having supply problems. I was going to reach out to her maybe next week and see what's up. Her shipping is amazingly fast. I think the last 2 pieces I ordered from her, it was 20 minutes or half an hour, and I had the shipping information. Of course, what the postal service does with it after she ships it is not her fault. And her fabric is, it feels great. The colors are beautiful. Like I said, this is a 25 count linen. The color is caramel. And I think I'm about halfway done with this. I'm doing it 1/1. I wanted this to be a smaller piece, and I looked at the stitch count on it, and the stitch count is actually, I don't have it written down here, but doing it even on 32 count, 2/2, I haven't tried 40 count, which I think is what the chart calls for. I'm just not sure my eyes could handle it without a lot of magnification. So 25 count over 1 seemed pretty good. And it's actually, this fabric has been pretty easy to stitch on. However the dyeing is done, it didn't tighten it up the way some of the hand dyes from Picture This Plus tighten up. So it's pretty easy to see. And of course it's a lighter color, which also makes it easier. So I'd like to see some more progress on this. We've been working from home again recently, but unfortunately there haven't been as many calls, and I've actually had things that I've had to do. So not so much stitching time during the day. Next up is Blackbird Designs, and I know a lot of you have seen this. A lot of people have stitched it. This is The Winter is Past, and I think I showed this also in my last video. So I really wanted to finish this by the end of 2020 because I went ahead and put the date in as 2020. But I didn't get there, again, because, I had less calls, more doing. So I'm stitching this on 36 count ancient from Picture This Plus linen. The chart called for 36 count oaken, which I thought I had when I bought all the threads in the chart, but I don't. But the ancient I thought was a really good substitute. I kind of like that it's got the blue and gray modeling in it a little bit. I don't have all that much to do. You can see down here I put the 2020. I need to finish this interior border. There's one more row of letters, and then there's the outside border, which is what really caught my attention. It's tulips and it's blues, and should go pretty quickly. I think it seems like a lot of could be rhythmic stitching, so I'm kind of looking forward to getting back to this, hopefully soon. It's been a fun stitch, and I don't 36 count I can handle easily, so maybe 40 count wouldn't be such a big deal. Maybe I'm a little nervous over nothing. I'm not sure. And my last WIP is I don't have the chart. I swore I brought it up here when I brought everything up, but I can't find it right now. This is Leeds House Sampler. This is another Rosewood Manor. And I'm doing this one as a wedding sampler for my husband and I. We got married in May of 2019. And I didn't stitch anything at the time, but I saw this, and this called to me. Early, probably March, I was poking around websites while I was killing time, having to be home. So I'm making some changes to this. The top in the chart was 3 rows of alphabet with a bunch of motifs, and the motifs have almost a Celtic kind of feel to them. My husband is Scots-Irish, so it kind of seemed appropriate. We were also planning, we still are planning, but we don't know when it'll actually happen, a trip to Scotland and Ireland. So it just all kind of seemed to fit when I found this. So what I did was I combined the alphabet into 2 rows, and in this middle row I put our last name, and I put some of the motifs that had been on those other 3 rows. This actually, I ended up adding 4 stitches to the width of the piece. It's supposed to be 170 by 270, so mine's actually going to be 174. I'm using the called for threads, which are sulkies, and again, I'm really enjoying them. You just pull them off the spool and go. And the fabric is the called for 28 count helix in Cashel from Picture This Plus. Really pretty light blue. And I just started the middle piece. The middle piece is a big kind of Celtic inspired motif, And then on the bottom is a verse, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use the verse that's charted or if I'm going to use, I have another one of Karen's samplers that has another verse that I think I like better. So some changes to this, but definitely keeping fairly close to the original. Really need to get back to this one. I'd like to get it finished before our 5th anniversary. I don't think that's an unrealistic goal. It gives me 3 years. And reality is, if I sat down in the evenings and worked on this, it probably would go pretty quickly. Karen's charts are incredibly clear. They're easy to use and a joy to stitch from. So there you have it. I do have one WIP that I'm not showing because I'm going to discard it. It's another older magazine piece. It was designed to, it's from a February issue, a Halloween issue, so it was supposed to be a piece with all the small candies, and you would mount it in one of the heart-shaped boxes. I really liked it when I started it, but I was trying to use items that I had in my stash, and the wrappers around the candies are all supposed to be stitched in a silver metallic. So I don't like DMC's silver metallic, so I was going to use a Krynic. I didn't have any Krynic number 4. I had Krynic number 8. I didn't want to order it, so I thought the number 8 would work. And I think to make it fit in the box, I had to use a 32 count fabric. And the number 8 was just way too bulky. And then you backstitch over the metallic, and I didn't enjoy it. I don't like the feel. The holes were really tight because of the thickness of the braid. And I looked at it when I was getting things together to bring them up here to do the video, and I'm not going to finish it. I don't like it enough to finish it. I am going to look at what I've got done and maybe see if there's a way to make a small flat fold or something out of what I've got done. So we'll see. Probably won't completely toss the bits that I've got done, but not going to go forward with that. So that is all of my current WIPs. Like I said, not big on plans, but I did see when I was going through my book of days for some information on my WIPs, I have way more finishes in 2020 than I thought that I did. So my next video I'll probably include a finish parade, because I do still have those pieces. There were 2 of them that got given away, but I have good pictures of them that I can insert. So we'll see how that goes. Going to do some editing on this, make sure I had everything in the frame. Like I said, I'm using the rear camera so that things are showing up correctly. And I found some editing software, so hopefully I can put a title in the beginning and cut out some bits like at the beginning where I walk around to the front of the camera now, because I don't have a good way to start and stop this without touching the screen, so y'all don't need to see me flopping into my chair. Not very graceful at all. So happy 2021. Thank you again for sticking with me, for watching this. I hope you like what you see. Use the like button if you feel so inclined. Subscribe, because probably going to be filming most Sundays. So happy 2021. Hopefully we all, like I said, hopefully we all have a prosperous and healthy new year. And I'll see you soon. Thanks.